For the first time in 60 years, Nepal has slid into a recession. People are facing the brunt of high inflation, something the government has zero control over because Nepal is import dependent. So how will the South Asian country come out of this crisis? Our correspondent Saloni Murarka decodes. Take a look.
Nepal's economy is in an unprecedented downturn. Economists point at quarterly data which shows that the country has slid into recession for the first time in 60 years. People's livelihood in Nepal is largely being affected due to inflation, which is 7.4% year-on-year basis. The prices of goods, particularly essential commodities and land, are increasing at an exponential rate.
We cannot ignore the high inflation rate and rising price. Earlier it was tolerable, but for the last 2 years especially, the inflation rate has skyrocketed. Due to COVID, economic activities have come down to zero. It feels like the economy is dead. Due to the Ukraine war, the price of oil has gone up, and thus there's rise in inflation.
In recent years, Nepal has been hardest hit by the liquidity crisis. To raise liquidity, the banks have raised the interest rate on the deposits to as much as 12%. This saw the lending rate shoot up to 14% and even more. As a result, neither bank deposits nor investments registered the expected growth.
This shop is all I have. It is difficult to describe the situation here. The banks are not giving loans for my shop, and I'm paying a higher rent than before. Every year, landlords increase the rent by 10%. Even after having money in the bank, we are not getting loans.
Due to the lack of meaningful job creation in the country, larger sections of the working population are forced to leave the country for work in other countries. Out of Nepal's 30 million, nearly 1,500 youth are leaving the country every day for jobs abroad. Despite some measures adopted by the government, the country's economic condition continues to worsen. Revenue receipts are hardly enough to meet the recurrent expenditure.
Because of not having enough investment in the country, and second is our policy, fiscal policy and monetary policy, which are very loose, and those loans actually diverted into unproductive sector, and we have increased the unproductive expenses, recurrent expenditure in budget.
Nepal has forecast that the country's economic growth rate this fiscal would be 2.16%.
Never in the known history, Nepal's economic condition has been as severe as it is today. The country's main economic indicators, foreign exchange reserves, liquidity at the banking, the financial institutions, government revenues have all shrunk up at an unprecedented level. The gap between the trade of balance and the prices of consumer goods has skyrocketed. And still not single concrete steps have been taken by the government to fight the crisis that the country is facing. Economists have suggested the government to rule out new financial reforms and invest it wisely in the country. Saloni Murarka for World is One in Kathmandu, Nepal.